At the start of the war, I obviously was doing investigations into strikes with massive civilian casualties, but a pattern was emerging, which was of hits on medical facilities, on medics, on doctors, on ambulances, and around hospitals. This was obviously a highly contentious issue because Israel claims that a lot of these hospitals were being used by Hamas, that Hamas uses them as bases, operates near them to fire rockets from, that there's a command and control center in all of these hospitals. But I wanted to specifically look at what happened to Gaza's medical infrastructure in the northern half over a period of 21 days. And I looked at 10 hospitals. By the end of the 21 days, only 2 of those hospitals were still functioning under extreme difficulty. 8 of these hospitals had been rendered completely inhospitable to any kind of medical treatment. This included the only 2 pediatric hospitals in the Gaza Strip, the only cancer hospital in the Strip, and the only psychiatric hospital in the Strip. So I've worked mostly on war crimes investigations in the past. I started off investigating war crimes in Libya, in Syria, did a bit in Ukraine, and this is sort of my 4th war. And the one issue that has recurrently come up is the concept of trauma. What we've seen with war reporting in the past is that you have PTSD because you're witnessing firsthand the absolute worst parts of humanity. But what we're seeing with open source is you're seeing the worst of humanity being captured in the most graphic detail. You are being completely drowned in a tsunami of information. Syria was the most documented war in history until Ukraine happened, and now we have Gaza. So we have a tornado of sort of really graphic imagery that you're supposed to disconnect from and clinically analyze over and over again, and do it day on day for months on end. And what that means is it creates a cognitive dissonance because you're living in 2 places at the same time. And what that does to a journalist, because there is this sort of understanding in newsrooms that because you're not in the zone itself, you are not affected by it. But there is a scientific term for it. It's called vicarious trauma. And we see that with pretty much any open source investigative journalist who is covering this kind of war crimes, because they struggle with feelings of guilt because they feel that they cannot disconnect because they owe it to their sources. They're constantly in touch with people who are surviving a war zone. A lot of the work that they do involves watching the worst crimes, watching a killing over and over again. So you have a toxic combination of PTSD, which is not being correctly managed by the editors, by the employers, who are constantly downplaying it because you're not in the field. And alongside that, you have a range of Palestinian and Arab journalists who feel that their voices are not being heard. And both these make this war perhaps the most difficult to cover. It's the most inhospitable environment that you can ask for a journalist whose job it is to go into the most complex territory and tell you the facts on the ground.